fast.
Alright, sorry about that, guys. So red locks, they represent you. So if there's no red lock, there's no work, okay? Make sure you attach this before you go in. Make sure you take it off before you come out, after you come out, if you're finished. This represents your life, basically. So, that's what it's there for. As a protected person, so responsibilities for you guys. Make sure that you only attach your lock. So I'll be giving everyone a lock. You put your name on it, and go on the board there. That is your lock. Nobody else can use it, and you can't use anybody else's. Another part of your responsibilities are to make sure that you're notifying yourself, the oscillating person, Aaron, if there's any issues. If you have a problem with the oscillation or you're not sure, ask the question. Make sure you raise it before you don't just lock on and assume it's okay. Always ask the question if you're not sure. Don't try to start something that's been locked down. If you want to verify that something is locked out, ask the authorising person. They're the ones, it's their job to make sure that the isolations are in place and effective. If you're not sure, ask the question. And lastly, like I said, only remove yours. You can't remove somebody else's lock. Whether they ask you, say, yep, here's my key, go take my lock off. Nah, they've got to do it. You touch your lock and your lock only. If you follow those, they'll allow you to work safely on any piece of equipment that's been isolated. Cool. A couple of other types of locks that we use here. We've got obviously red locks I've been through, yellow locks, which are also known as equipment locks. What are they going?
Isolation points, isn't it?
Yep, isolation point. So these locks are specific for the switch, the valve, the equipment. Yep. Can I put a red lock on instead of this?
Can you not put a red lock on without yellow though? Or does it have to have a yellow?
Has to have a yellow.
Yeah.
It has to have a yellow.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So that was my question. Can you just put? Can you substitute the red lock for the yellow lock? No. Very good. Other one's green locks. I haven't really spoken a lot about the complex stuff yet. Essentially, a green lock is a group lock, and this is what goes on the group lock boxes in place of a yellow lock. So let's say I've isolated the gallery, put the two yellow locks on the isolating points. Keys go in here. How do I know that that is now locked? We use a green one. So the green one's the group lock. Green one goes in place. Once that's on, you now know, oh, the green lock's in place. We're good to go. So you can then attach your red lock, go do the job. And then the last one are the purple ones. So these are more specific to our site. These represent fumigations. So when we are under fumigation for any or all silos, fumigators will come in and use these purple locks to lock out the specific valves related to fumigation. If I wanted to go work on a fumigation hut, what sort of lock would I use to isolate the equipment in there?
So we're using to isolate equipment, you'd still be using yellow or red if you could actually.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't mistake this as an isolating lock because you're working on fumigation equipment. Doesn't matter what the equipment is, what it's used for. It's always got to be locked out with the yellow lock, and then use your red locks to protect you. These are only used to lock valves in positions while fumigations are underway. So we will never use these, only the fumigating contractors. Cool. Alright. A few other bits of equipment. So we've got the lockout station board. So behind Ming there, this board's got a bunch of lock boxes, different locks, hasps, different types of equipment for locking, performing isolations. That's where 90% of your group lock boxes will go to. So when we're doing work in the gallery, as you say, it'll end up going into that one of those lock boxes up there. That's where you come and lock on and lock off. Other things we might have are tags, so equipment tags or danger tags for personal items. They're just down there behind you as well. So you can store your red locks here on the board if they're labelled. You can use a generic red lock, but you have to then have a tag with your details on it, so we know whose it is. That's the whole idea. It represents you. It needs to be identified. Yep. That's what these tags are. So you've got danger tags. So therefore, for personal identification, when we just got a normal lock. So for example, put names on them. This says Luke, but let's say it's got no one's name on it. It's just like a C1 or something. Could I give this to you and you can use it as a? Why not? What if I gave you one of those?
No.
Yes, you can. If you have one of these tags with a lock that doesn't have your name on it, fill out the tag with your details, and that essentially becomes yours.
Yeah, if the tag has your...
The tag's got to have your stuff.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, the other one's warning tags. So you got warning out of service and under maintenance control. They usually sit with the other locks, just to identify that this is being worked on by maintenance or a particular reason. It might be tagged out because it's broken. Whack a tag on with a lock so no one can actually go and use it. Pretty straightforward. What if somebody put a tag on it but there was no lock? Would that be an effective isolation?
Does it have a yellow lock on it?
It has no lock, it's just got a tag. No, it's not locked out.
No.
It's just tagged out. So it's basically tagged saying there's a problem with this, probably shouldn't use it, but it's not being taken out of service what it should be. If it's something that's taken out of service and cannot be used, it has to be locked. Yep. Okay, the process. So there's 5 steps for the isolation process here. We've got plan. So the first thing is to plan the job. What are we going to do? What do we need to lock out? How are we going to lock it out? How are we going to verify it? All this stuff is done in consultation with either operations, maybe Bill is the asset manager. He knows where everything should be locked out. I could use Grant if I'm not sure how to electrically isolate something. He's an electrician. He has more knowledge that I don't have. Step 2, isolate. So we're going to put our plan in place. We know what we've got to lock out. Grab my yellow lock. Turn off that isolator. Whack a lock on it. Very next step is probably one of the most important steps is to verify. It's no good isolating a piece of equipment if you don't check to make sure it's actually switched off. We've had instances of this in the past where someone's come along, turned off a switch, chucked a lock on it, and then gone to start it up, and it started up. That's why we do that, because you've got to make sure that it's effective. Yeah, if it's not verified, you shouldn't be working on it. Number 4, de-isolate. So that happens obviously after you've done the job. Pretty straightforward. You come along, take your red locks off, I'm finished. Let whoever know that locked it out, that it's all work's all done, you can have it back. ALP will come along, de-isolate, re-energise, test to make sure it's all good. Return back to service, number 5, and back to ops. So it's a pretty straightforward 5-step process. As far as responsibilities go, plan, isolate, verify, all done by the ALP, the authorised isolating person. From there down, actually that whole thing is done by the ALP. Your step comes in after verification. Once that's done, you go, yep, you can go for it, go and use it. Beautiful. Red locks are on, go do your job, come back, lock off. So there's not a lot here for you guys to really do. It's more just a knowledge thing for your checks. So if you want to come in, maybe you've had a shift change, you've had a handover and you said, yeah, the gallery's still locked out, it should be all good. Well, what's something you're going to want to look at? You're going to want to make sure that the locks are in place, the group lock's in there, keys are in there, green lock's on there. You might want to see the plan to make sure it's all been checked and verified. Just ask those questions every time. Roles and functions. So part of the plan, like I said, ARP, check person. So like the last slide, you got plan, identify, isolate, secure for the red lock, verify, and then you come in, whack your red locks on. Planning, step 1. Identify and isolate, step 1. Secure it with the yellow lock, step 2. Verify, step 3. Check the person's covered. Very, very important that this process is followed. If we don't follow this process, then we're all at risk. Okay? Cool. Alright, simplex isolations. So, what you will need for a simplex isolation, you'll need a plan. So you need an isolation plan so you know what to lock out. You'll need a multi-lock device, or what we call a HASP, which I've got there. So these hasps allow more than one lock to be attached to a certain point. One. Okay, so if I attach that to an isolation point, how many red locks would I be able to fit on it? 5, yep. There's 6 holes there, 1 for the yellow lock, 5 for the red locks. If I needed 7 people to work on that, what would I need to do?
Can you put another one through it?
Absolutely, yeah. So you get another hasp, chuck it through a hole, and you've automatically got another 5. Yep, because that hasp locks out this one. Where's the yellow lock going to go?
First one.
First one? Yep. And then the other hasp here with the other red tags. That's what you need. I'll show you the plan in a second, but form looks like this. I'll show you an example. Simplex. So simplex, this is the forms. Here's one that's been done. So shaker in the tower was isolated. It was for cleaning. So this is a person authorised, prepare the plan, authorise the plan. A few checks that you got to do: notify the supervisor, ensure the area is clean, assemble the required equipment. So this person's assembled the hasp, got his yellow lock, got the plan in place. Isolate and lock. So he's identified what to lock out. It's an electrical isolation, and there's a local control switch. Lock ID number, which is probably the yellow lock number, and then he's initialed it. Verification. Verify that it's locked out. Local test. Push the local button. Did it start? No. Control room started. Can the control room start it from the computer? No. Verify that it's locked out. Pretty straightforward, yeah. Verified, signed off. That is simplex isolation plan. Very straightforward. De-isolating, obviously making sure everything's been removed. Everyone's red locks are off. Yep, I can, as the AOP, I can visually confirm that everything's all done. Come along, take my yellow lock off, switch it back on, turn it on, make sure it's all good. Righto, Austin, you're good to have that bit of gear back. Okay? And then there's a photo. So that's the switch in the tower. Hasp on, yellow lock, red lock, simplex. Beautiful. So like I said, with a simplex isolation, there's one source of energy and one isolation point. Very much like that. Got my hasp, got my red lock, got my yellow lock. Red lock's got a tag on it. So So that's identifying somebody. Right. Another example of the form. So if there isn't a pre-written form, we'd have to develop one. So the OLP would then have to consult with certain people to make sure that their plan is adequate. Okay. Some simple checks for key isolation. So as a protected person, you might want to ask yourself these questions. Is this the right isolation point? I mean, I'm telling you that that's all locked out, ready to go. How would you know? How do you know that it's the right thing? You're trusting me to say that, yeah, I've isolated the right thing. Well, simple. Is that the right one? Dan, you isolated the right thing? Absolutely, mate. Here, look. I'll try and turn it on. No, it won't work. See, it's all good. Here's in a safe position. So, think about the sweeper truck. Have we left the backup on the sweeper truck? Is it chopped? Could there be a potential for that to fall down while I'm working underneath it? Simple questions like that. Any residual energy being drained? You've isolated the receiver. Well, you've isolated the compressor. But the whole site's still full of compressed air. Has the air been drained? Has it been verified? Prove it. Ask me to verify it. If you're not sure, hey, can you check that? Sure, absolutely. Is there a plan? You want to see the plan? Here's the plan. Have a read. You know, little things that you can do as a protected person to make sure that you're covered. And you don't just want to come in on blind faith to go, oh yeah, Dan knows what he's doing. I've been here since 5:30, mate. It's now 6 o'clock at night. Been here all day. Probably a little bit tired. Yep, I'll go lock that belt out for you. Oh shit, I've locked out belt 4 instead of belt 5. You go work on it. Little things you've got to be mindful of just to protect yourself. You can't always just trust that everything's done correctly. Check yourself as well. Very important. And like it says, if in doubt, confirm. Ask the question. Make sure that it's correct and safe for you. Okay, complex, a little bit different. Equipment that you might need are the plan. Notice that it's another plan. You need yellow locks, you need hasps, you need a green lock, and probably a lockbox. There's another type of lockbox, we can use these. You stick the keys in there, put a hasp through that, the keys can't get out. The whole point of these boxes are so that we can't take one part of the isolation away and leave you unprotected. So if you're working on 2 or 3 bits of equipment, you want them all locked out all together. That way I can't just go, oh, I need that belt running now. I know you're working on it, but I just need to turn it back on real quick. Well, Will's over there still working on it. I've spoken to Ming. Ming said, no, you should be right. Well, if it's locked in the box, I can't get it out until I know Will's come back to take this lock off. Okay. Complex isolation plans essentially identify every single isolation point and energy source. How we're going to isolate it. So for the most part we're focused on electrical switches. But what about valves? What about taps? You know, how would you isolate one of those with a switch and a hasp and a lock? Different bits of equipment to isolate different things. So I can stick that in there, put my hasp and lock through that, you won't be able to turn that on. Pretty good? Air valves. All valves, very similar. How do you stick your hasp and lock on that? Well, there's this little fella. Remember how it works? So that basically goes over the line. So that's in the off position, right? So you stick that over the line. You get this bit, it slides through and catches the valve. I can't come and turn that at all. Stick your pass through there and your lock, that can't be slidden back off. That's an airline isolated. So I've isolated both of these so you can work on whatever they are. What do you need? You need hasp and a yellow lock, hasp and a yellow lock, then what?
It's complex.
complex, I've got 2.
So then you need the green and you need the lockbox.
Need a lockbox with a green lock. So the keys would go in and in, the green lock goes on. Once that green lock's on, are you all good to go?
You gotta put your own lock on as well.
Definitely. Red lock goes on, then you're good to go. Beautiful. Similar to a simplex, it's basically more than one simplex put together. Keys just go into one place. Complex checks. Ask yourself these questions. Is it the right lockbox? You've come up here and said, yep, lockbox upstairs, boys, and there's 3 lockboxes and they've all got keys and locks on them. How do you know which one? Are you going to just guess? No. Nah? What are you going to do?
You're gonna ask.
You're going to ask. Absolutely. 9 times out of 10, there'll be a label on it that says gallery, this, that, whatever. But you're going to ask me. Beautiful. Is there an isolation plan? Again, we want to check the plan. We can go through the plan. Residual energy being drained. Yes, no, confirm. Are the keys to the equipment box inside the board? What's the good of locking onto a group lockbox if there's no keys in it? You want to make sure that they're in there, right? So that's why they've all got perspex fronts, so you can see. Is there a green lock on the outside? Can you lock on your red lockbox without the green lock being put on? No. Green lock's got to be on. Alright, what can you attach your red lock to?
What were those little things you called before? The 6 holes.
The hasp.
Box.
Yep.
Hasp.
So a multi-lock device or a hasp. Or
Or the box.
the lockbox. Beautiful. As a protected person, when do you remove the lock? So when would you come and take your red lock off?
Before you step in and after you finish.
Yeah, so when you finish the work, you come and take it off.
After,
Yep. When else would you take it off? It's pretty much written here. Okay, so if you finish your work, if you've asked to stop and remove it, if you're going to go away for extended periods, say you want to go and have lunch, you might want to take it off then, or if you go home. What happens if you leave it on and you go home?
You gotta come back.
You'll
You'll get a
come
call.
back. You'll get a phone call from me saying,
Not from me.
you'll have me ringing you up going, you idiot, you have to drive all the way back to site to take your lock off.
You're trying to sleep from aren't you?
So really important, make sure if you finish the work, or you're going home, or you might want to have lunch, something, just take it off. If you know you're not going back in there, come take it off. Simple. Otherwise, I'll come and ask you, say, hey, I know we're not finished here, but I need this equipment, so put it all back together, get your locks off, then I can use it, and then we'll come back to it later. They're the most of the times that that'll happen. Okay, so the other thing, emergency removal of personal locks. So this form is used basically as a last resort. So if Ming's gone home or he's gone on holidays, he's left his red lock on, he's flown out that night. It's a bit of a tough sell for me to say, hey, you're gonna have to fly back, take your red lock off, alright? I might go and go, with your permission, I'll speak to you on the phone and say, hey, I need to cut your lock off, what do you think? Are you definitely on that plane? Yeah. I'm in Bali, I'm having a great time. Why are you bothering me? Well, that's where we'll fill out this form, okay? So if a person forgets to remove their red lock and every attempt has been made to contact the person so that you can return to site, and they can't, then I'll talk to Aaron, obviously. We'll start this process, fill out this form. Basically, we'll go and cut the lock off. There'll be an investigation. We'll have that permission. If we can't get it, every attempt's been made to contact you, still can't get onto you. We absolutely 100% need that belt running tonight because it's holding up the ship. There's going to be a big investigation on what's happened. You know, what part of the process has failed, that there's been a lock left on that shouldn't have been. Could simply be, oh, I forgot. Well, maybe we need to come back and do this training again. Hopefully not. Anyway, that's the process for removing locks if we can't get you back to take them off yourself. Okay? So it's a pretty big deal. I've actually had to do this once. And it's a nightmare. So take them off, take them off, take them off. Alright, we're nearly there. Recap. What's the yellow lock used for? Equipment lock? Yep. So if you see a yellow lock on an isolator, it means the equipment has been isolated. It is part of a simplex or complex isolation. Okay, yeah. So equipment locks are the yellow ones. What's the green ones used for?
Group lockout.
Group lockout, yeah. Where do they go?
The box.
On the lockbox, beautiful. And it's got to be put on before or after your red lock? Before, absolutely. Green lock can only be used on a lockbox, and it should not be used in any other place or any other equipment. So I can't go and put a green lock on the isolating point because it's incorrect. It means equipment's been isolated, it's been verified, ready for your protected persons to attach. Same as yellow lock. It's a yellow lock in place, equipment's been isolated, it's been verified, ready to go. Couple of questions. Frequently asked, what happens if there's no multi-lock or equipment lock on the isolation point? So if you see this, what does that mean?
It's been done wrong.
Yeah, so you're going to go, what the hell is this, Dad? Like, what's going on? Where's the hearth? Are you sure you're all here today? Simple. You know the plan? You know it shouldn't be looking like this? Well, it's not. Hey, Grant, what are you doing? Ask a question. What happens if you leave work and you've left your lock on an isolation? You got to come back. If you can't come back, you're going to tell me, and we'll start the process of the emergency removal. Yeah? Or we might say, all right, it can wait till tomorrow when you're in next. Yeah? I'm just going to go cut locks off for the hell of it. Can you use an ID or a warning tag instead of a lock? Personalised lock? No. You can use one, but it's got to be attached to the lock. Can somebody borrow your lock? No. What do you do if somebody asks to borrow your lock? You say no. Exactly. Okay, where's yours? Okay, any other questions?
Just so if Grant's looking something out, does he need a yellow lock and a red lock if he's then working on that machinery that he's locked out?
Yes, he does.
Yes. So but does that mean there should never just be a yellow lock by itself like that?
The only time you'll see a lock like that is if it's part of a complex isolation. The key's in there and the red locks are in the box.
Yeah. So yeah, so it should essentially, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So yeah.
But yeah, it was
otherwise,
even if it's just Grant, like locking something out, working on himself, he needs to have a yellow and a red lock.
if it's just Grant, it'll look like this. And it's a simplex, so he'll have the yellow lock on, and then he'll attach his red lock, and then he'll remove his red lock, and then he'll remove the yellow lock and turn it back on.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might see some stuff left locked out because we haven't either got to de-isolating or we don't need it, and it might stay like that for a day or two to give a dig out. You know, we're finished digging out, everything's made safe. I just haven't gone up to take locks off.
Yep.
But they'll be in the lockbox and they'll still be locked out with the group lock.
Yep.
That's a good one. Anything else? Happy?
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll go through the theory assessment. This shouldn't take too long. Grab a pen. Ask any questions, and then when you're finished, I'll get you to fill out these feedback forms for me.
Oh, is that top up for you? Training details? Department.